My name is Minister John Rowland III, and today I want to talk about something a little bit different because I would like to explain certain things that if you want to talk about a little bit more, just leave a comment. So, the first thing is we already talked about, but I want to kind of go a little bit through everything. Now, I want to do a little bit of, well, explain yourself. I have done this before, but the key is women usually will explain themselves, and men will not. So, the main thing is that the man has to understand that he can't just answer yes or no. He has to explain if it's a yes or if it's a no. So that way she'll understand what you are talking about. Same way with her. If she doesn't explain something to you that you need explaining, ask for information, more information. Okay, on to the next. Now, safe zone. I've talked about that before. Make sure that you also live out of your safe zone at all times. So this way, if something does come up, you have the ability to take care of it instead of ignoring it. Okay? Now, free will to choose. That means you have the free will to choose where you live, who you marry, what car you drive, everything that pertains to your life. Make your own choices that you can live with. It's like the old guy said. He says there were a lot of things that he said back then that I would have changed if I know what I know now. And I says, well, you can do the changes still right now. He says, oh, yeah, that's right. Because I'm still alive to do it. Next. Now, I'm going to get into a lot of controversial things, so it's kind of interesting when they have a debate between a Christian and an atheist. Now, the atheist is worldly, the Christian is spiritually. So how can you have a debate between earthly things and spiritual things? Because the atheist will talk about earthly things, because it doesn't believe about God. And Christians will talk about God and spiritual things. So how can they have a debate on two different subjects to come out with an evaluation of who is right? Okay? That's my take and understanding. You can go from there. Now, we are all spiritual beings because our soul is divine, which means it's eternal. It's everlasting. And we are having an earthly experience in a mortal body, which means that it will die over time. But our spirit and soul will live on. God calls us a personality. Our personality will live on. Now, from God's perspective, we are not sinners. We are but disobedient children Now that's kind of an interesting concept to where we have done nothing wrong, but we have rebelled against God and gone our own way. That means we are sinners. But God doesn't see us that way. He sees us as disobedient children that will not mind. It's like when your children do something that you don't like. Okay? You don't disown them. You try to guide them within the right ways. So this is God's point of view, is we are disobedient children that need guidance from Him. And the only way to do that is get saved, which is just to ask God to come into your soul and live there. That's the only difference between saved and unsaved. Is God, we live within inside of God, and once saved, God will live within us and also lives around us. That's why we can't find Him. Now, we also need to understand the difference between earthly things and spiritual things. That's kind of interesting because, like I said before, the debate between atheists and Christians, worldly things and spiritual things. We live in two different worlds. Well, actually, we live in four different worlds. We live within God's mind, which in turn, we live here on earth as a physical being, and then we live in our minds two different realities. One is saved and one is unsaved. So, which in turn, we live in four different realms of reality. Later on, I'll get into that more in depth. But okay, now, I want to get into marriage a little bit because the fact is a traditional family is a man and a woman and they get married. Well, marriage is an institution that they promise many things to each other to start a family and raise the family. So this way they'll have a heritage and a culture all their own. But once you get into outside of husband and wife, it's really kind of interesting because you take into consideration gay marriage. I don't care if it's two men or two women. Once they get married, which is a fine union, I don't say nothing about that because it's not I don't judge them. I'm not their judger. I'm not their judge. It's not my job. So, when you're getting into gay marriage, which is fine to me, if somebody ever come to me and wanted to get married, I'd marry him. I don't have nothing against them. The only problem that presents is when they want children. Now, if two women or two men want children, they have to go outside of the marriage to have children, which is grounds for divorce, because they've jumped the fence. And within a man and a woman, they have the ability to have children within their marriage. That's the only difference. And I just wanted to point that out to you because that was concerning to me, is if they wanted children, they had to jump the fence to go outside of marriage to have children. Now that's not included if they already have children and get divorced and remarry. That's not the point. The point is that if they jump the fence, that's ground for divorce. So, would you want your boyfriend or girlfriend to go outside of marriage and get pregnant with somebody else? That's grounds for divorce. So, that just kind of something to think about when all these gays and stuff are getting married. Well, that's fine. They even want to do taxes together, and they want everything to do together, but they don't realize a marriage nowadays is almost a curse, because if you combine both incomes, that means you pay twice as much in taxes because your income is too high. Now, if you were single, your income would be separate. You'd pay less in taxes. So that's really kind of interesting to think of what they got themselves into, and I don't think they realize what they've really done until after. And that's why there's lots of divorces within the gay society, because they realized that they was better off single. So, now the next thing is, now this was brought to my attention a little while ago, which was really kind of interesting, is because what's the best day, Earth Day, and spiritual day? That was really kind of interesting, because the best day for mankind was when we walked on the moon. What was the best spiritual day? When Jesus walked out of the tomb. Now, that was really interesting, because when he walked out of the tomb, that means he survived death. He proved a point stating that because he walked out of the tomb, he lived again. And that means we can too. We can survive death through salvation. And he made that happen. Okay? Now, spiritual growth, once you get saved, everybody goes through a different spiritual growth day to day. Some mature quicker than others. Some study more than others. We have our own potential spiritual growth. And this is why some people can't understand, and they claim to be a Christian, but you don't know what advancement they have gone through and come to within their life. Now, if they give themselves more than 50%, God will start taking over and teach them many, many things. If not, from that point in time to about 55% of giving yourself to God, a lot of things and sometimes certain things do not change until later on, when more and more and more giving yourself to God, things will start to change within your life. You will think different. You will act different. Even your speech will change. So that is really, really kind of interesting when everybody goes, well, you're not a Christian. You don't act like that. Well, They might be a baby in Christ and just got saved and still learning. Well, their attitudes sometimes don't change for a while. So outward appearance and outward speech doesn't reflect really what's starting to develop on the inside. So accept who they are, because later on, if they do get saved, they will change. You have to wait for it. Okay? Now, the next thing is kind of really interesting. Yeah. Okay, judgment. It's like I said before, God doesn't see us as sinners. He sees us as disobedient children. But God also sees judgment different than we do. If you do something wrong in society, you will go to jail, pay a penalty, or you will pay the penalty with your body. You stay in jail. Or pay with your hard-earned money. But you see, we only see what you've done, not the reason. And a lot of times, the judge doesn't care the reason. All he sees is you've done something wrong and you're going to pay for it. But God, on the other hand, he sees why you've done it. And if it was justified, he forgave you. That's the difference. Now, there is one last thing that I want to talk about. And is evil. Now, there is a difference between the evil one and being evil. Think about it. If you're evil, it doesn't come from the evil one. It comes from within yourself. You become greedy. That means you're unsaved. The fruits of the Spirit are not within you. So, you can't be the evil one because there's only one or two of those. But you can be evil. That means you could use people, you can lie to them, you can steal from them, and you can do all the stuff that's evil. But once you get saved, your attitude will change into giving and many other attributes of the fruits of the Spirit. So, if you want any more information about what I talked to about today, put comments below if there is any. If not, you can email me at johnruland@yahoo.com and just put a subject, what you want to talk about. Thank you.